Yeah. The clutch disc, this is manual transmission test 2. The clutch disc is also called a friction disc. Is that true or is that false?
True.
It is true. The pressure plate exerts force or pressure against the clutch disc and clamps it against the flywheel.
True.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Okay. Woven asbestos linings were used on older vehicles but are no longer used.
False.
False. You still got asbestos in there. And Sean, when I told Sean the other day that stuff was really poison and he might get mesothelioma, he said, "Oh no, I touched that stuff." You're just not supposed to.
Isn't that it acts like fiberglass as well, or is it that there's fiberglass in it?
Well, there's some fiberglass there, but I mean, it's a lot of what you're seeing there is asbestos fibers look like fiberglass somewhat.
I had a scrub arm with something like a Scotch-Brite pad or something.
You're supposed to take a cold shower, not a hot one.
A mechanical clutch linkage uses a series of rods and levers to disengage and engage the clutch. This is a no-brainer, right?
What is it?
Number 4, that's true, you know, mechanical clutch linkage. In other words, you know, like on your old Chevrolet or truck, like the old trucks you had. Now, Willie's has got a doggone, you got your clutch on the lift starting to work on the clutch? I mean, you got your truck on the lift already? Yeah, you're working on the clutch already, right?
No, I had to,
You just bleeding it or something?
no, I'm going to take the transmission out.
Yeah, jerk the transmission. Now you're going to be looking at putting probably a concentric slave cylinder in there. And those are a little irritating to bleed, but you'll have a lot of fun with that.
I will.
Yeah, you will. I'll show you how to. I'll show you a trick though.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Cable linkage is used on both front wheel and rear wheel drive vehicles.
True.
That's true. I mean, not all of them have cable linkage, but some of the older ones do. Hydraulic linkage is used where other types of linkage cannot be used.
True.
Yeah, because it snakes around. And as a matter of fact, most vehicles has got a clutch in them nowadays. They'll use a hydraulic clutch. Most of them do. And on some of them Chevys, bleeding the clutch is tantamount to just really disgusting because it's real hard to get it. If you don't know exactly how to do it, you will work on that thing for a long time. You guys how you guys clutch bleeding operation going? You and Tyler?
Well, we're about halfway done.
Is that right? You're making a little headway. It's just slow. Yeah. Make sure you keep fluid in the master cylinder.
Yeah.
And that one there, believe it or not, the clutch master cylinder, the clutch slave cylinder actually gets. The clutch system gets fluid from the regular brake master cylinder. They don't have a separate one, which is interesting on that one. All right. Okay, you guys, listen up. On rear wheel drive vehicles, the engine or transaxle must be removed to access the clutch.
False.
And because it's not, you're talking about transaxles, right? You know, there was a little Datsun B210. You ever seen one of those?
Yeah.
Did you know that on that thing, if I remember right, you could replace the clutch without pulling the engine out? Real quick and easy to do. Take a little cover off. There was a guy named Peter that was from Malaysia that drove one of those things, and he wanted to know if my dad could put a clutch in there. And whenever he investigated it, I didn't see this thing. I need to look that up. I don't remember what year model it was, but my dad said there's this little cover you took off there. And, you pull that little cover off and the clutch is just real easy to change, I'm trying to, in my mind, see how they made that work, But anyway, before a clutch is installed, the surface of the flywheel and the pressure plate must be oiled.
False.
I will tell you this, though. Some of the heavy equipment that I've worked on had wet clutches. You ever heard of wet clutch?
Gonna have so much.
The clutch was in a sealed chamber, and it was swimming in oil.
So much friction because it's such a heavy.
It was real heavy, but it had the clutch lining was had like a little waffle design, and it was lining, and it was made to have oil in there, and it would bite and stuff. Well, yeah, there was another one time there was this big old truck that was like a doggone. It was like a deuce and a half international. It had it was a gas burner though, and it had 2 transmissions in it. You ever seen a vehicle with 2 transmissions in it? That sounds kind of silly, don't it? It sounds like something I'm making up.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a jury rig.
All right here, you had the big transmission right here, and you had a little drive shaft going back to another transmission, and then coming out of that transmission, it was going back through the hanger bearing to the back wheels. this transmission had a gear shifter, and that transmission had a gear shifter. And this right here was a 5-speed, and that was a 4-speed.
What's the purpose?
This thing had 20 forward gears. You put this bad boy in granny low, this thing right here pull a doggone skyscraper off the blocks. I mean, it was a stud. I ain't kidding you. I mean, but you could, if you just were pulling something super, super, super heavy, it was a gas burner engine, didn't have the torque of a diesel. Because it just had a big gas burner engine in it, you could put that one, you could actually, if you put that one in, you didn't shift this one going down the road. It's like you had 4 separate gear ranges. You put it in granny low, that one right there, when you put it in first, you could actually give the engine a lot of gas. You could walk alongside this thing. That's how slow it was going. You know what I'm saying?
Basically, just a transfer case though kind of deal.
Not really. It was an auxiliary transmission. That's what they called it. I've never seen another one like it anywhere. Big old Lodestar 1850 or something. And what was cool about that truck was, we actually, it was a good truck, and they really liked it. And we bought a brand spanking new cab and put on it $5,000. They paid for a brand new cab. So I had to take the cab off of that one and put a brand new cab on it. I'm talking about new seats, new gauges. It's cool. I mean, it was one of the most interesting projects I ever did. I ever replaced the cab on the truck, and when you got through, for all intents and purposes, you had a new truck. Just sitting there. But I mean, now you probably wouldn't be able to do that now. But it was, the fiberglass front, it would tilt over. If I'm not mistaken, it was a '74 model, I think. That was, and international in those days. A lot of the times the wires would be all the same color, and instead of, they would be all black or all white or something, and they would have little numbers on the wires, like 222. The circuit number would be on the wire. That'd be really interesting. All right. How in the world did I get off on that?
What kind of vehicle is that?
That is an Expedition.
Oh, okay. Well,
Ford 2003 to 83. Oh, no, this won't work. Ours is 2001.
it will work.
Yeah, well, sorry. Okay. All right. Did you give me a ticket or something? Or you
No,
just
I
leave it
just
like
wanted
it
to
was?
make sure, because...
These look like they're just exactly what we need.
Okay.
And,
Because Brett had sent you Chevrolet. Those other things were for Chevrolet?
yeah, this is Ford, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, I'll make you a ticket.
did give
and
him,
bring it
tell
back.
him he was a second-rate amateur for sending me the wrong stuff.
That's right.
All right.
All right.
All right, then. Okay, let me get Ray back over here. All right, now then. Now we're going to do a little match thing here, and then we're going to be through this before you can say you don't do it. If you don't say don't do it too fast. Device that allows the driver to engage and disengage the engine and transmission or transaxle. There's going to be a dog in it. D, clutch. Occurs when engine torque is suddenly applied to the powertrain.
Is that J?
It's actually going to be shock loading. That's G.
Shock loading?
Yeah. 11, lever that moves the release bearing back and forth to release the clutch. That's going to be that's the clutch fork. That's right. Number 12, connects the clutch pedal to the clutch.
Linkage?
Will be the clutch linkage, yeah. E. Okay, force that keeps the stationary objects from moving and keeps moving objects in motion.
Inertia?
Yeah, 13, inertia. And number 14, heavy metal wheel that stores energy from the rotation of the engine. That's I, yeah. Number 15, supports the end of the transmission input shaft and aligns it with the center line of the crankshaft.
Release bearing?
That's going to be B, that's a pilot bearing. That's that little bearing in the front there. And I'm going to tell you a little story about that in just a second. Okay, provides driving force to the wheels.
Powertrain?
Yeah, powertrain. Very good. Flat circular piece that exerts force against the pressure plate. Diaphragm spring. And number 18, pushes or pulls against the pressure plate to disengage the clutch.
Release bearing?
Everybody happy about that? Okay, now, what you got here, you ever seen on your pilot bearing sometimes, like Sean, you remember, and make sure you put your name on those when you put them in the thing here, because sometimes the they'll say, whose is this? I don't have a name, so don't go there. Does anybody have it? Give me that eraser. But anyway, you'll have these little pilot bearings. That is, yours was a bushing. The one that you put in was a pilot bushing. Remember that? Okay, that pilot bushing was actually looked like this right here. I'm going to give you a cross section of this bushing. This is important, guys. Let me know. This is the kind of stuff that you don't learn at some of your other, programs. And there was a guy from a really well-known college, automotive college, that came to work down there at the Ford place, and the guy really had good knowledge of the material, but if he put a socket on there and it wouldn't turn, or if something happened that didn't go just exactly right because something was old or rusty or whatever, he would run out of ideas real quick, and he would always want to come and see if somebody else could bail him out. There was another guy that came from one of those colleges that he had a brand new set of snap-on tools there that was a part of his training, and he was taking an engine out of Explorer, and about the time he had the engine swinging on the hoist, he realized that the fan was in the way, and it was, the fan's on the water pump on the front of the motor. And the fan is actually one of those big ones that screws, we got the big nut that you screw off of the water pump. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so he was hung up because he couldn't go back in with the engine because everything had sort of moved out of the way. And he couldn't come out because this was coming against the radiator. And I said, why didn't you take the fan off? Well, I don't know. I just didn't think about it. But what do I do now? Because, the fan's just kind of spinning real easy. I said, how are you going to break that big nut loose? You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's in a sort of a pickle. He said, I don't know what to do now. He was a reasonably intelligent guy. And like the other guy, he knew the material pretty well. I mean, he was efficient, But when he ran into a situation like this, he was just out of ideas because he didn't have the experience. But I said, I looked at his snap-on toolbox. I said, you got an air hammer anywhere in that toolbox? And so he came out, and I put a little chisel against one of the flats on the nut, kind of like that right there, where the air hammer pushing, just screwed it right off of there. I've actually got a set of wrenches that you put on an air hammer now to break those loose. I have actually took a wrench and just whacked it with a hammer and you can break them loose. But anyway, got to make sure you know which way the thread is because someone got left-hand thread. It'll tell you on the fan how it does. Anyway, so this guy, he had one of these that was made like this. I'm giving you basically, if you looked at it in the end, it looked like this. And ordinarily, it would have little needle bearings in here, right? And all that kind of stuff. It's just a thin metal shell. It's really hard. And a lot of them are like that. A lot of these things are like that. And, some of them you can actually, they'll be up in the flywheel. You can take the flywheel off and knock them out from the other side. But if it's up in the crankshaft, and these needle bearings are gone out of there, now how you gonna get that silly little thing out of there? Now the one like you got, yours actually came loose, right? And yeah, it was just a sleeve. It's little bushings, all it was. It didn't have any needle bearings in it. It was just a piece of metal, sintered metal. And it had actually made itself a little smaller where you could stick your finger in it and pull it out. But most of the time, that ain't the case. And some of the times, what we used to do, and let me redraw this and make it like one of yours again. We would take a piece of something and grind it down so that it was just exactly the right size to fit in here real snug. Right? Now you got a cavity back here. Like that right there. It's basically how that is. And this is in there good and tight. It's biting on that. We patch this doggone thing. We get our grease gun, and we pump this cavity back here slam full of grease. And then we would take our little thing right here, and we would hit this with a hammer. And when you hit that with a hammer, that grease would hydraulically push that thing out of there. Well, his situation was one of those where he had this thing up in there, and it was like this right here, and all the needle bearings had come out. As a matter of fact, one of the little things was broke off of there, and he says, how can I get that out of there? You got any ideas about that? And so I never had to do that before, but I just kind of thought on the fly, and I went and got a carriage bolt. You know what a carriage bolt is? I had a carriage bolt in my box. The kind you usually bolt a vise down with. It's got a dome-shaped head, and it's got a little square here, and then it's got threads, right? Okay, I got a 5/16 carriage bolt, and I ground it off. When you see it from the top, it's a dome, and I ground it off so that it looked like this. All right, so now, if you looked at it from the side, see, you looked at it from the top, you look like that. If you look at it from the side, it still looked like that. And it still had threads on it. Alright, so I was able to take it and put it in here, like this right here, so that it was biting both sides of that. And so you had threads sticking out here. It was fairly long. So I put a socket on here, and then I screw a nut on there, and I turn that nut, and this thing just pull that thing right out of there.
What was your for?
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, it didn't cost anything. I had the stuff in my junk drawer to do it with. And as a matter of fact, we did one like here. I've got the carriage bolt and a little piece of a bearing in there on my desk because it's sort of a show and tell. Why I'm not showing it to you and telling you instead of drawing it, I don't know. I mean, I could have gone there and got it, but I was too lazy. But anyway, that's how I done it. And that's one of those things when you think on the fly, you'll see sometimes somebody that's a seasoned technician, and you'll say, I can't get this off of here. And they'll come over and go snap, click, you know. Now, apparently I'm not as seasoned as I would like to be, because sometimes when students call me, they've already rounded the bolt completely off, and nobody can get it out of there short of a miracle. You know what I'm saying? They get the impact wrench and they put on there, and the socket's a little bit too big, and they go, and they've made it perfectly round. And how are you going to get a hold of it now, you know? Thanks a lot. Anyway, why instructors get gray, okay? Now, here's another thing. Think about this. This is another little problem solver. On a 350 Chevrolet, and why he's working on a 350 Chevrolet at the Ford place, I don't know. A 350 Chevrolet, you know, the manifold looks like that. And it's got, you know, holes like that. Like that right there. Okay, he took the manifold off because he had to pull the heads off and all that hogwash. Well, then when he got to put it back on, the manifold, because of the heat and everything, had changed shape. And now, these were too close together and the holes didn't line up anymore. Same guy called me over. How can I fix this? I mean, you know, because he says, I'm looking at the holes, and the holes are like right here, you know. You see what I'm saying? So he needed, I mean, it was shaped perfectly before, but now the heat's done distorted it and all that kind of thing. So in that particular case, I get a socket, and I get a nut and a bolt, and I put that in there. I mean, I put it down so that this is in between here, like that right there, with that nut bolt. And then I just screw that nut down on that bolt, and it pushes them back out so that they're right. And then he put it back up. Now, they make a tool to do that that you can buy on the tool truck if you want to spend $30 or whatever. Or you can get a socket and a bolt and do the old jury rig thing like Sean likes to do, you know what I'm saying? Now, did your brother know about your propensity to jury rig when he was putting the clutch in his truck? He doesn't know about that, huh? All right.
I explained it to him.
Yeah, he explained about the jury rig is the best way to do it. Huh? Now, what did you have to jury rig on that truck? You had to jury rig one thing, didn't you? The connector that you broke because you didn't know how to unplug it. And I didn't know how to unplug it either. I just walked away and left him on his own recognizance, and he says, well, we'll see if we can get this apart. Oh, yeah, we got it unplugged. Then he got ready to put it back together and use tie wraps.
Was it like a hydraulic line?
No, not hydraulic. This was basically
Two-wire.
just a wire connector.
It was really big for a two-wire connector.
Yeah, I guess I think it had 4 cavities, but there's only 2 wires in there. But anyway, that was about like an oxygen sensor connector, the size of it, you know. But anyway, that was a couple of little stories there. I just tell you, if you like I say, you can think on the fly and figure things out. Something else that people will do sometimes, you'll see an older guy do stuff. Just kind of, I think I'll try this, and it works for him. You know what I mean? And then you come along and try it, and it don't work for you. You know, you think, well, how did it work for him? It didn't work for me. You know, you see anything like that? All right. Now that closes out this. Now let me show you a quick video. All right.